She was never an idol, never a singer, never a movie star. Yet for one explosive moment, Meizhu shook China's entertainment industry harder than any celebrity scandal of the past decade. Her name didn't appear on billboards or drama posters, but inside the industry, she held something far more dangerous than fame: access. Access to managers, to marketing teams, to private schedules, to brand negotiations, and to the fragile machinery that manufactures idols by the dozen. And when she decided to step out of the shadows, that machinery collapsed with terrifying speed. In just a few days, more than a dozen idols saw their endorsements evaporate, their brand deals frozen, their carefully curated images shattered. Companies scrambled to protect themselves, PR teams went into survival mode, and platforms tightened their filters as if preparing for a blackout. What Meizhu exposed wasn't a single controversy. It was the industry's deepest fear, that the power behind an idol's rise can also destroy them just as easily. Her story reveals a world where careers worth millions depend on silent agreements, unseen negotiations, and people like her who know exactly where the system is weakest. And when someone inside that world decides to break the rules, the fallout doesn't just hit one person, it hits everyone connected to them. This is the story of the manager who built idols, controlled narratives, and in one unprecedented moment, brought an entire empire to its knees. Long before her name appeared on headlines and discussion boards, Meizhu occupied a position that most outsiders never notice, but every insider understands. The space where image, strategy, and opportunity intersect. She was young enough to blend into the new digital generation, but experienced enough to navigate the old guard structures that still dictate who becomes famous and who fades. In an industry where idols are groomed, packaged, and delivered to the public with precision, her role granted her access to everything the public never sees. She wasn't a stylist, assistant, or PR staffer. She operated in the orbit where management teams, advertising agencies, brand representatives, and internal strategists exchange information they never want leaking outside. She learned how idols were built not through talent alone, but through carefully engineered personas, rehearsed charm, sanitized pasts, and negotiated innocence. She saw how every endorsement came with hidden clauses, every photo shoot with unspoken rules, and every public appearance with choreography designed to conceal more than it revealed. Her proximity to this machinery meant she observed the patterns most people ignore. Who got protected when trouble surfaced, who got replaced when a brand needed a cleaner face, and how companies manipulated fan culture to control narratives. The deeper she went, the more she realized that idols weren't the ones holding power. They were products shaped by people like her, who understood how to create value and how to destroy it. Rumors inside the industry often describe an invisible hierarchy far more ruthless than anything the public imagines. At the top sit executives who approve multi-million-dollar campaigns. Beneath them are managers who enforce discipline, but beneath the managers are individuals like Meizhu, the connectors who move between departments, absorbing every detail, every weakness, every oversight, and because they are rarely in the spotlight, they can operate with a freedom idols never have. Her influence came from knowing the internal logic of the industry, how contracts were negotiated behind closed doors, how brands evaluated risk, how agencies silenced problems, and how much money could shift hands depending on a single decision. She understood how fan engagement could be manufactured, how scandals could be minimized with the right strategy, and how public perception could be bent through coordinated messaging. In a world built on secrecy, she became the person who knew too much, and the person who could cause the most damage if she ever decided to speak. Insiders would later say that her knowledge was the kind that made companies nervous, because once someone on the inside realizes how the machine works, the power balance shifts. They can no longer be treated as replaceable. They become dangerous. For years, Meizhu witnessed the fragile infrastructure that propped up idol culture, and she understood the truth the industry hoped fans would never discover. that the shine of a rising star depends on dozens of people maintaining the illusion. One crack in the system could expose everything, and she knew exactly where those cracks were. The deeper you go into the idol-making system, the more it resembles a layered machine. Shiny on the outside, but brutally mechanical inside. At the center of that machine is not the idol, as fans like to believe, but the network of handlers, managers, coordinators, brand negotiators, PR architects, and crisis control teams who build the illusion piece by piece. Meizhu operated in that ecosystem long enough to understand every moving part, and she quickly learned that the true currency of the industry wasn't talent or personality. It was narrative. Whoever controlled the narrative controlled the money, and narrative was a product crafted in boardrooms, not on stage. Idols were sold as perfect, conflict-free figures because perfection guaranteed endorsements, and endorsements guaranteed revenue streams that kept entire agencies alive. That's why companies buried inconvenient details, erased questionable history, and shaped public personas through scripts approved down to the last breath. In this world, contracts were not standard agreements. They were labyrinths of clauses designed to protect brands from the slightest risk. Agencies had departments dedicated solely to monitoring public sentiment, scanning for anything that could disrupt the golden image of their assets. Meizhu, due to her position bridging multiple teams, had access to the most sensitive layer of all: the negotiation pipelines between idols and major advertisers. She watched how a single photo shoot could shift millions, how brands analyzed idol behavior frame by frame, and how managers worked frantically to hide anything that might unsettle a corporate partner. She witnessed the politics between competing agencies, each fighting for the same commercial slots, the same festival invitations, the same luxury brand campaigns. And she saw how easily an idol's future could be determined by a whisper in the right ear. This was not a space governed by fairness. It was a battlefield where information was weaponized. The public believed that fans were the ones who propelled idols to success. But from the inside, she saw a different truth. Fan behavior was choreographed. Agencies manipulated online engagement by hiring comment farms, boosting hashtags, and engineering trending moments that appeared organic. Even fan wars were sometimes manufactured to generate buzz. Everything was transactional, from the tears on a variety show to the apologies typed out by PR teams and posted under the idol's name. But with every carefully crafted success came an equally fragile vulnerability. The more perfect an idol's image became, the more dependent it was on silence. Silence from former friends, silence from old colleagues, silence from anyone who had ever been close enough to see the seams. Meizhu understood that the power to expose those seams didn't require a large platform. It required credibility, documentation, and timing. And she had all three. Her position gave her unfiltered exposure to the real faces behind the polished posters. She knew which idols relied on brand sponsorships to maintain their rising status, which ones had internal conflicts with their agencies, and which ones were desperately trying to avoid being replaced by the next trainee lined up behind them. She saw how agencies created manufactured innocence as a commodity, selling purity as a brand strategy while suffocating idols under behavioral codes stricter than any corporate policy. Behind every smiling photo, there were teams calculating whether a gesture might alienate a demographic, whether a hairstyle might upset a sponsor, whether a sentence in an interview could trigger unwanted attention. The machine was precise, unforgiving, and always hungry for control. And yet, for all its sophistication, it was also astonishingly fragile. Because once an insider like Meizhu decided to challenge it, the system had no natural defense. A single person who had seen everything could dismantle everything. She knew which brands were nervous, which managers were hiding mistakes, which agencies were stretched thin financially, and which idols stood on images so delicate that one unexpected revelation could send them tumbling. This knowledge gave her leverage, intentional or not. The industry feared disruption more than scandal, because disruption meant unpredictable losses. And what she carried was the ultimate disruption: the truth about how idols were manufactured, marketed, and monetized. All she had to do was speak loudly enough, and the entire machine would start to shake. When the storm finally hit, it didn't begin with the idols themselves, it began with the brands. In an industry where image equals profit, advertisers are notoriously risk-averse, and any hint of instability triggers a chain reaction that moves faster than logic. The moment Meizhu stepped forward and the conversation exploded across Chinese social platforms, brands began running internal checks to determine whether their contracted idols had any direct or indirect connection to the rising controversy. That alone was enough to push the system toward panic. In just hours, marketing departments initiated emergency meetings, PR teams drafted contingency statements, and legal teams reviewed contract clauses that allowed immediate termination in the event of reputational risk. These clauses, designed to protect brands from unexpected damage, became the weapon that would cut down more than a dozen idols at once. The public only saw the surface, statements announcing suspended partnerships and endorsements under review. But inside the industry, the machinery moved with ruthless precision. Brands contacted agencies demanding clarification. Agencies, terrified of being associated with anything unpredictable, responded by distancing themselves immediately. PR firms advised clients to drop every face remotely linked to the situation, even if the idol had done nothing wrong. And within a few days, the first wave of contract cancellations rolled out. Major fashion labels quietly scrubbed images of their ambassadors. Tech companies removed promotional banners overnight. Beverage companies halted entire campaigns, even if they had spent weeks preparing them. The dominoes began to fall. For many idols, the destruction came not from wrongdoing, but from proximity. Once a brand cuts ties with one celebrity, others fear being viewed as slow or indecisive, creating pressure to follow the same path. Soon, agencies began to panic as well. Internal messages leaked among staff revealed managers scrambling to identify which of their artists might be vulnerable, cross-checking past collaborations, shared PR teams, or any association that could be construed as too close to the unfolding chaos. It was no longer about truth, it was about perception. The more the story escalated online, the more brands prepared for the worst-case scenario. Companies that previously fought aggressively for celebrity endorsements suddenly treated idols like liabilities. Endorsement pipelines froze. Negotiations for new campaigns were paused indefinitely. Planned photo shoots were canceled even after equipment had been set up and stylists hired. Inside agencies, the atmosphere was one of fear and anger. Several teams reported losing millions in anticipated revenue within days. Young idols who had spent years training found themselves suspended without warning. Others saw their reputation shattered before their careers even began. But the most stunning part of the collapse was the pattern. 12 idols, each with different backgrounds, different personalities, and different public images, lost their contracts not because of what they did, but because the industry was too terrified to evaluate risk calmly. Corporations, PR firms, and entertainment platforms acted as though they were responding to an invisible signal, each move intensifying the next, until the entire system spiraled into a commercial blackout. What Meizhu unleashed was not just a scandal. It was a demonstration of how fragile the idol economy truly was. Her revelations acted like a spotlight that forced brands to acknowledge a truth they usually pretended not to see. The industry's stability depended on silence, on smooth surfaces, on the illusion that nothing behind the scenes could ever threaten public perception. When that illusion broke, even slightly, the response was immediate and devastating. Idols who had spent years cultivating a spotless image lost everything in hours because the industry could not afford to confront the underlying vulnerabilities she exposed. The fallout also revealed how interconnected the idol economy had become. One crisis could spill across multiple agencies, multiple brands, and multiple careers because they all depended on the same fragile ecosystem, an ecosystem that had no built-in mechanism for controlled damage. Once the first piece fell, everything else followed, and in those chaotic days, as brands retreated and endorsements collapsed, the entertainment industry witnessed something it had long feared but never imagined would happen so violently. A single insider, not a superstar, not a CEO, not a political figure, had triggered a shockwave capable of taking down 12 perfectly packaged idols without ever targeting them directly. She didn't have to point fingers. She only had to speak, and the machine tore itself apart. As the fallout spread, the industry began to confront an uncomfortable question. Who actually benefited from the chaos? And why did the reaction unfold with such staggering force? Because when 12 idols lose their endorsements in a matter of days, the damage doesn't stop at individual careers. It ripples outward into agencies, brand portfolios, and the entire commercial ecosystem built on celebrity economy. The first and most obvious victims were the entertainment companies. These agencies invest millions into training trainees, grooming them for debut, negotiating brand deals, and sustaining the fiction of perfect stars through relentless image management. When contracts combust suddenly, agencies are hit with direct financial penalties, lost opportunities, and the irreversible damage of being perceived as unstable or untrustworthy. Several mid-sized companies reportedly lost an entire year's projected revenue in less than a week because endorsements make up the majority of an idol's market valuation. For some, the losses were severe enough to trigger emergency restructuring. PR firms were the next casualties. Their role is to prevent precisely the kind of industry-wide collapse that Meizhu triggered, yet the scale of the event exposed their limitations. Internal documents circulated quietly among several PR agencies described their inability to control the narrative, a failure that left executives furious and uncertain. Teams that once boasted of crisis management capabilities suddenly found themselves powerless as brands terminated contracts without consultation. But while some sank, others rose. Competitor agencies, especially those with rival idols waiting in the wings, saw opportunities. When one idol falls, another rises to take the vacant commercial slots, and many companies had long resented the dominance of certain stars who monopolized lucrative partnerships. Behind the polished surface, entertainment is a battlefield of silent competition, and a sudden vacuum can be worth millions to the right player. For certain brands, the chaos even provided a chance to renegotiate deals at lower rates or pivot to ambassadors with cleaner images and fewer contractual demands. In a marketplace where public sentiment shifts quickly, brands that moved early could replace losing assets without appearing opportunistic. Yet the group that benefited the most was the one least visible to the public: the regulators of the entertainment narrative. For years, there were attempts to rein in the explosive growth of fan culture, which had become powerful enough to influence advertising, streaming numbers, and even casting decisions. The idol economy had grown too chaotic, too emotional, too unpredictable, and Meizhu's revelations, intentionally or not, provided the perfect storm to justify sweeping cleanups. In the weeks that followed, platforms introduced new rules restricting fan clubs, crowdfunding promotional campaigns, and data manipulation. Agencies were ordered to audit their artists' backgrounds. Streaming sites tightened content guidelines. Brands were pressured to avoid excessive idol dependency. Her actions accelerated reforms that had been brewing beneath the surface. Reforms that benefited the system's upper layers more than anyone realized. Which brings us to the most important question. Why does the industry fear people like Meizhu so deeply? The answer is simple. Idols are public-facing assets, but insiders like her are the custodians of their image. They know which narratives are fabricated, which reputations are held together by fragile PR maneuvers, and which idols are one misstep away from losing everything. The system relies on their silence to function, When someone from within breaks that silence, the illusion shatters. They expose not scandals, but weaknesses. Weaknesses the machine cannot afford to acknowledge. She showed that a single narrative, if delivered at the right moment and from the right position, could destabilize the entire idol economy more effectively than any external force. The industry's fear was not about morality or justice. It was about control. A system built on polished surfaces and managed perfection cannot survive the unpredictability of an insider willing to challenge it. And once she proved how easily the facade could crumble, every executive, PR strategist, and brand manager understood a truth they never wanted spoken aloud. The idols they built were not destroyed by public opinion. They were destroyed by the system's own fragility, and by someone who knew exactly where to press. In the aftermath of the shockwave, the entertainment industry faced a reality it had spent years avoiding. The idol economy, despite its billion-yuan facade, was fundamentally unstable. The collapse triggered by Meizhu forced agencies, brands, and platforms to confront the vulnerabilities that had always existed beneath the glossy promotional campaigns. Long before the dust had settled, internal meetings began across Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen, each one addressing the same fear. If one insider could ignite such destruction, how many others might be capable of the same? Agencies responded first. They tightened screening procedures not only for idols, but for everyone connected to them. Managers were vetted more aggressively. Background checks became standard. Confidentiality agreements were rewritten with harsher penalties. Anyone who had access to marketing plans, endorsement drafts, or internal scheduling suddenly found themselves under far closer scrutiny. Agencies began to treat insider risk as seriously as external scandals. But the changes didn't stop there. Training systems, once focused purely on performance and image, were adjusted to include media discipline, brand safety protocols, and risk management coaching. Trainees were warned repeatedly that the people around them, friends, former classmates, ex-partners, co-workers, could become liabilities if boundaries were unclear. Trust, once the invisible backbone of idol culture, became something monitored, evaluated, and documented. Brand behavior changed even more dramatically. Corporations realized that their endorsement strategies had become too dependent on the emotional volatility of fandom culture. As a result, they shifted focus from fast-rising idols to established actors, older celebrities, and even non-entertainment ambassadors, such as entrepreneurs or athletes. These figures were seen as safer investments, people with longer, more stable public profiles, and fewer unknowns. Many companies quietly announced new internal policies. No idol under a certain age, no idol without a stable studio backing, no idol without a multi-year behavioral history. The era of quick endorsements built on overnight popularity began to fade. Platforms followed suit. Streaming sites implemented stricter filters around trending topics, attempting to prevent public sentiment from spiraling as quickly as it had during the collapse. Fan clubs were placed under tighter supervision, required to register, document activity, and limit fundraising efforts. Fan ranking systems were shut down. Voting mechanisms were restricted. The overall message was clear. The industry would no longer allow idols or their fans to operate outside the boundaries set by higher authorities. Yet the most telling shift happened within the idols themselves. Many who had watched 12 of their peers lose everything overnight became more cautious, more self-protective, more fearful of visibility than ever before. Several well-known stars stepped back from social media. Others avoided live broadcasts or variety shows unless heavily scripted. They understood that even a minor association, even an accidental connection, could trigger disaster. The idol economy, once built on youthfulness and spontaneity, calcified into something more controlled, more scripted, more risk-averse. Ironically, the very culture that idol fans once celebrated, freedom, authenticity, connection, became harder to maintain as the system fortified itself. But while the ecosystem shifted to protect itself, the public perception of the industry also changed. Many viewers, especially younger audiences, began questioning the authenticity of the entire idol-making process. Conversations erupted online about manipulation, exploitation, and the hidden hands behind celebrity careers. What had been whispered privately for years finally broke into mainstream discourse. Fans realized that the system was far more fragile and far more dependent on secrecy than they had imagined. Meizhu's impact, therefore, extended far beyond the immediate scandal. She altered the way people understood fame. She revealed how little control idols actually had over their careers, and how easily external forces, from brands to agencies to insiders, could dismantle them without warning. And she exposed the uncomfortable truth that scandals in the idol world are not always the result of individual wrongdoing, but often the byproduct of a tightly wound system vulnerable to disruption at its weakest points. By the time the industry recovered, her influence had become a blueprint for crisis studies. Internal seminars referenced her case when training new managers. PR teams used her as a reminder that narratives cannot be neglected. Brands cited her impact when discussing risk strategy. Even idols whispered her name as a warning of how quickly the world behind them could collapse. And whether she intended to or not, Meizhu left behind a legacy the system will never forget. She proved that the idol industry was not destroyed by rumors, scandals, or fan wars. It was exposed by someone who understood its inner workings too well. Her story remains a turning point, a moment when the machine realized it could be undone not by its opponents, but by one of its own. In the end, what Meizhu exposed was never just about personalities or broken contracts. It was about an entire industry built on fragile foundations, where image substitutes for reality and silence substitutes for stability. Her emergence shattered the unspoken pact that kept the idol economy running, an understanding that everyone behind the scenes must protect the illusion no matter what. When she broke that agreement, the fallout revealed more about the system than it did about any individual. For the first time, the public saw how quickly an industry that markets youth, innocence, and perfection could unravel when confronted by someone who refused to play by its rules. And as the shockwaves spread, it became obvious that the idols who fell in those days weren't destroyed by wrongdoing, but by a commercial machine that panicked at the thought of losing control. The reforms, the restrictions, the sudden paranoia, all of it pointed to one truth. The system feared transparency more than scandal. Her actions forced agencies to confront vulnerabilities they had ignored for years and pushed brands to reconsider the risks they had been blindly accepting. She proved that power in the entertainment world does not always belong to the ones on stage. Sometimes it belongs to the ones standing just a few steps behind. Whether she intended to reshape the industry or simply spoke from her own perspective, the result was the same. A moment of reckoning that changed how idols are built, how brands calculate risk, and how much trust the public places in the stories they are told. And long after the noise faded, one question continued to echo through the industry. If one insider could bring down 12 idols in a matter of days, what does that say about the system that created them in the first place?